The Solitaire series, episode 39, The Eight of Hearts, by Troy Lambert, narrated by Troy Lambert. One thing Jack did not want to do was hurry, but he had to, as much as that was possible. Everything hurt. His entire right side was on fire, but also felt different. And most importantly, he could see with a depth he hadn't in years, through both eyes. He had heard the noise, gunshots. None of that would help his recovery, but his recovery was almost secondary at this point. What mattered more was his freedom when this was all over. And the only way that happened was to either escape with the information he had, more than just a single card, as someone in the other room had said, or to team up with them. That meant sharing treasures of Solitaire, but Jack knew two things none of them did. No single person could spend all of that treasure in 2 lifetimes, and one person would not have time to retrieve it all on their own. Either way, a team was required, and while he didn't trust anyone, not anymore, he needed an out, a final out, and this was it. He stumbled, and the new man he didn't recognize caught him by the left elbow. The nurse moved around, and the two of them eased him into the bed. He first sat, then laid back. A few of the people came into the room. Joseph, a tall man named Alec, who Boris growled at. Bert, a blonde woman he had seen before, even met perhaps, but as a redhead? His new vision blurred. There was a large man, linebacker looking as well. Frederick, perhaps? He had an injured shoulder. "Boris," he said with all the strength he could muster, "come." He couldn't snap, couldn't manage the German, but the dog came and sat obediently. He wanted to reach down, to scratch his ears, but the dog sat by the right side of his bed, and he couldn't move that side. Not yet. He gave a quiet command, quiet enough that no one else could hear, and then motioned to Joseph. "You can take the card from his pack now, but hand me the ring." Joseph knelt beside the dog and unzipped the pouch. Boris growled. 9, Jack said, his voice just above a whisper. He held out his left hand and grasped the ring as it was handed to him. "Can you put this on my finger?" he asked the nurse. "Sure." She slid it onto his ring finger, and Jack allowed himself to look at it for just a moment. What you hold there is a key to a puzzle, but it is one of many keys. There are 54, as you can imagine, because the original deck included the jokers. They don't matter to the code except for their position in the deck. That position is always a clue to the answer. "I know, Jack," Joseph said. "No, you don't," he managed. "And the less you all interrupt me, the more likely I will get through this. I want to clarify that without me, you won't make it through. I have 3 cards. You have seen them, Joseph. The 10 of diamonds and the 4 of clubs, but also another. One that is part of this ring, which I just recently discovered. That means there are 49 more cards. There's a list in my safe in L.A. of everyone who has cards and which one they have. It was given to me by my father, and that's what you need to assemble the deck. Some of those who have cards will happily give them up. Others may be dead, and their heirs may have their cards with no idea what they mean and how valuable they are. Some people have more than one, and other cards are keys that hold more than just the code. You'll have to find them all, as much as that is possible, as soon as possible. Yes, there is a party in 2 weeks, 14 days from now, and it would be ideal if we had as much of the deck as possible by then," Joseph said. "This party, it is at Ace's home?" Jack asked. "What did he say?" Cynthia asked. He asked if the party was at Jack's home. "How did you know?" she asked, moving forward. "I didn't. Ace has, well, an ace you will need, but he will not give it to you. You'll have to convince him to cooperate, but doing so should be easy, as long as you give him some control of the operation." "I work for him," Frederick repeated. "That will help, but really the person you need to get to is his wife, Dahlia. the Queen of Clubs. Her card, and what she knows, is, well, vital. Her father was a key figure in setting all of this up, almost as powerful as mine. In fact, she might have a copy of the list. I'm not sure. Not sure? Cynthia asked. Nothing can be sure. What do you know that the rest of us don't? There are 5 people who have part of the order of the deck. I am one, Ace is another, so is Dahlia, which is why she married Ace, by the way. Jack felt himself getting weaker, but he needed to finish, to help them understand. The order? The key to the real Solitaire code. Not the pattern we use to send messages, Joseph, but one infinitely more complex. The one filled with cards that are more than cards. Maps, locations, contacts, information. The key to lifetimes of treasure hunting and millions upon millions in riches. Tell us, Joseph said. Share your part of the order. No, Jack said. Not yet. But here's the combination to the safe in my home in L.A. He reached across his body painfully towards Boris. Bring him over here, he said, indicating his left side. Once released from his sit, Boris bounded to the other side of the bed and licked his lips and whined as Jack rubbed his head for a moment. Then Jack tapped the bed with his left hand and Boris put his front paws up on it. He opened a Velcro pocket on the side of the dog's vest and pulled out a card, the 8 of Hearts. This is number 39 in the deck order, Jack said. The next in the deck is the King of Spades. That's all I'm going to tell you for now, except that this isn't enough. This isn't the 8 of Hearts that belongs in the deck. However, with his good hand, he touched a spot in the center of the back of the card, and it slid into 2 parts. Between them, a series of numbers was written. Get the list. Assemble the cards. I don't care who does that, but Joseph, perhaps you can work with Cynthia to coordinate efforts. Someone has to be in charge. Of course, as Joseph said, I won't let you down. Be careful, he mumbled, feeling himself fading. His hand rested on Boris's head. Men have died for this secret, good men and bad. His eyes closed, and he heard shuffling and mumbling as the group was shooed from the room. 2 of Clubs, 8 of Hearts, King of Spades, Queen of Spades. He recited part of the list in his head and drifted into dreams. Bert limped next to Frederick, who stumbled down the hallway. Alec, the tall dude, was ahead of both of them. A new guy, Cynthia, and Joseph, the uninjured of the group, brought up the rear, talking to one another. His calf burned. Dog bites could be deadly if they got infected. No matter how great that dog might be, his mouth carried the same germs other dog mouths did. It hadn't been the dog's fault. Bert wasn't really a dog person, but he'd tried. Because he wanted what he assumed everyone in this room wanted. A way out. And all these cards, this code, all the stuff he'd accidentally become involved in, was his ticket. Maybe not to the big time, maybe not even to getting rich, although he had enough money, really. What he really wanted from all that money, from everything, was freedom. No matter how hard he'd tried to work for himself, to be his own man, he always ended up tied to someone, and their rules, and even ambitions. But to get all that, he needed a freaking miracle with his calf, at least a solution for the pain and hopefully a rapid healing process. When they reached the lobby, all the bodies were gone. There were 2 men with mops cleaning things up. Dr. Larry stood waiting for them. Gunshot wound and dog bites, follow me, please, he said, going down a second hallway. This place was much bigger than it looked on the outside. Katie, can you get each of them settled in a room? He asked the nurse. Bert followed her down a hallway and entered the first door when indicated. Get into that robe, everything off except your underwear, she said formally. Gown opens and back. It's just my calf, he heard himself protest. Gown opens and back, was her only response. Bert saw no choice but to comply, so he sat on the edge of the hospital bed, grimacing as he removed his shoes. The right one held a small puddle of blood. He tried to remove his right sock, but couldn't. Instead, He removed his left shoe and sock, worked his way out of the sweats, and tossed them aside. The raider's sweatshirt was next, once he removed the 5 of spades and the note from the center pocket. He'd give them to whoever ended up taking charge of this fiasco, whatever it was turning out to be. His t-shirt followed, and he managed to get the gown on and tied up at the top at least. He lay back on the table, leaving his right leg as straight as possible. As he closed his eyes, he reflected on the last several days. He'd gone from card counter to some kind of conspirator to now some kind of treasure hunter, maybe? He'd done just what Ace asked and found Jack Bardlow, but had no way to let him know. And what about Nakamura and Solitaire? Where did they fit in all of this, or did they? A few days ago, Bert would have considered himself a pretty safe person, engaged in some illegal activities. But now? He walked a dangerous tightrope, and Jack had said the only things that made real sense to him, or seemed like a reasonable way out. The nurse came back a few moments later, hooked him up to a few monitors, frowned at his blood pressure, but he figured that had to be up due to stress, and a dog bite. She then found a vein, hooked up an IV, and started saline flowing. She left, but within a few moments, he had to admit he felt better. Then he heard footsteps in the hallway. The door opened and Cynthia appeared. Sweat dripped from her unnaturally pale face. "I don't think this place is safe," she said. "We have to get out of here." "I think this place is as safe as any other will be," he told her, "and I need to get fixed up before I can go anywhere. Why don't you have a seat so we can talk? I'd love to know a little bit more about your story and what you plan to do next." She looked back over her shoulder into the hallway, shut the door, and sat down. "We've been through a lot together for a couple people who don't really know each other that well," she said. "Stressful situations, trauma, does that to people. They get thrown together. We really need 2 things right now: trust and a plan. We don't seem to have much of either, although I'm grateful to see Jack speak for working together. How about you? What do you see?" "I agree with what we need," she said, "and I want to trust you. I think I can. But if I tell you more about me, you might discover some things you don't like." "That you're undercover law enforcement of some kind and got sucked in while trying to shut all this down?" he said, gesturing with his hand broadly. "You knew that?" "I guessed that. I don't know who you work for, and I'm not a huge fan of the underbelly of Vegas, except that it allows me to make a pretty damn good living. But right now, my method of making a living is the least of my worries. Survival is number 1. And then maybe I'll even consider a change of careers. So, Cynthia, if that is your real name, tell me a story, and then I'll tell you one." "It all started with my dad," she said. "Doesn't it always?" Bert joked. Then Cynthia began to speak. "I don't know your past, so you might understand, you might not. But my dad, well, he was a cop and a gambler. He tried to play both sides and feed the law and the sharks. All that worked until it didn't. One day he went to work and never came home." "Wow, that's tough. How old were you?" "A teenager. I decided right then I would land only on the good side of the law. Figured out what it took to get into the FBI and followed the playbook exactly, but studied statistics and accounting of all things. A real nerd. I engaged in cosplay, too. Did the conventions and everything. Do you know what that is?" "Where do you think I got the top hat and scarf idea?" Bert answered. "Theater kid here." Cynthia laughed. "My mom lived long enough to see me get a badge. Got assigned to Vegas, and I did my time behind a desk starting out. But I got invited to be the bait in an undercover sting, due in part to my looks, I'm sure. A bit sexist, but it got me in the field. I was so good at disguises, a supervisory special agent took notice and decided I could use both my statistics and accounting skills and my penchant for being unrecognizable at the same time." "So you got a promotion, and here we are." "Sorta. This was supposed to be a short-term assignment, but I'm a good gambler." "You count cards?" "You ever meet a winning gambler who didn't? The casinos try to make it harder." "But the better they get, the better we get," Bert interrupted. "I get you, and your old man and I have a few things in common." "Oh, yeah?" "Funny thing about trying to play both sides. I wanted to do the right thing, Joined Las Vegas Metro, worked as a beat cop, and much like you, got picked to go undercover. More likely because of my skin than my outfits, but my ability to act certainly didn't hurt. But I swore I'd never take a dime from the wrong people, and that I could handle it, protect myself. Turns out you couldn't? Nope. One night I lost big, took money from the wrong people. Sure, I could pay it back quickly and never let that happen again. Bury it. Move on. And? I got caught. Lost the badge. Cops shoved me out the door, and the same people I used to bust offered me a seat at the table, as an entertainer, if you will, but one allowed to win as long as I didn't get out of hand. I rarely did, always put back in my place. Been there ever since. So you already lived the trap I'm afraid of falling into? Cynthia asked quietly. You're already there. The question is, can you crawl out before it closes on you? What do you think? She asked. I think this is an opportunity for both of us. A fresh start, maybe, if we can take it. I think I'd rather gamble on hunting treasure than in the back room at tables. I feel like that chapter of my life is closing, no matter what is next. So, what do we do? Work together like the man says. Find and figure out this code, and then get to work. So, you have my back then? She asked. You got mine? Bert replied. Yeah, she said, sticking out a slender hand. Just then the door burst open. Dr. Larry walked in. I was going to ship you off to a hospital, but you and the tall one, Alec, is it? Bert shrugged, and Cynthia nodded. There is a new treatment for dog bites out there. Not an approved one, you understand, but due to my current licensing issues, I don't always get stuck with just approved methods. I see. Does it work? Bert asked. Most of the time. There are some risks, but in your case, well, I think it's worth a shot. Pardon the pun. The doctor smiled and looked Cynthia up and down. You're not in need of attention, are you? No, she said. Not any kind you can offer. The doc threw his head back and laughed. Let's get on with it then, shall we? He pulled a syringe filled with a greenish-looking liquid from his pocket, along with a sanitary-looking package. He laid it on the metal table to the side of the bed, set down the syringe, and pulled it open. Oh, hell no, Bert said when a needle at least 6 inches long was revealed. Oh, hell yes, Larry replied. Miss, want to help me hold him down? Roll over on your side, please, and expose your right butt cheek. This will only sting for a second. Cynthia smiled, and Bert screamed as the needle entered his flesh, and he felt the liquid race into his bloodstream. All done, the doc said, applying a Band-Aid and exiting the room. Bert lay back, and Cynthia grinned again, holding out her hand. Partners? He shook her hand and smiled. It was much too early for it to be true, but he already felt a little better. Thanks for listening to the Solitaire series, episode 39, The Eight of Hearts. Next in the series, The King of Spades.